6:30 a.m. The kind of quiet that only exists in suburbs before the world wakes up. A hum of a coffee maker. The rustle of garage sale signs taped to telephone poles. Liz Barraza steps into her driveway, breath visible in the January chill. She's arranging a life's worth of treasures. A vintage Boba Fett figure, Disney snow globes, handmade jewelry on fold-out tables. Her husband, Sergio, walks out, still half asleep, and pulls her close. "Love you," he mumbles into her hair. "Love you too," she whispers back. The smell of his cologne lingers as his car disappears down the street. This is the last normal moment Liz will ever know. Because right now, less than a mile away, someone is pulling a black hoodie over their head, checking a gun, starting an engine. In 19 minutes, they'll turn onto this quiet street. In 20 seconds, they'll fire 4 bullets into Liz's chest and head. And in the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee, they'll vanish, leaving behind a Star Wars mug shattered on the driveway, a husband's voicemail begging her to pick up, and a question that still haunts this town. How do you vanish after stealing a life? It's 6:49 a.m., the kind of cold that bites your lungs. Frost glazes the grass, and the streetlights cast long shadows over the quiet neighborhood of Tomball, Texas. Liz Barraza stands alone in her driveway, her breath curling into the air like smoke. She's setting up for a garage sale she'd spent weeks planning, neatly arranging Star Wars action figures, stacks of old DVDs, and a handmade sign that reads, "Everything must go," in bright purple letters. The world is still asleep. No cars, no chatter, just the rustle of cardboard boxes and the distant hum of a furnace kicking on somewhere. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching over gravel. A figure in a black hoodie walks up the driveway, hands shoved in pockets, face hidden in shadow. Liz turns, maybe smiles, maybe says something like, "Can I help you find anything?" But we'll never know, because in the next breath, for gunshots split the silence. 3 bullets tear into Liz's chest and head. The 4th slams into the garage door behind her, punching a hole through the wood that's still there today, a scar no one can bring themselves to fix. The killer doesn't run, doesn't hurry. They just turn and walk back to their truck, a dark Nissan Frontier with silver rims, and drive away. No screams, no neighbors rushing outside. Just Liz lying on the concrete, her blood seeping into the cracks as the sun finally rises over the rooftops. Who does this? Who plans to kill a 29-year-old woman in the heart of suburbia, in broad daylight, and vanishes without a trace? Liz wasn't just a name on a police report. She was the kind of person who dressed as Princess Leia for kids' charity events. The wife who surprised her husband Sergio with a Millennium Falcon cake on their anniversary. The daughter who called her mom every night without fail just to say, "I love you." No enemies, no debts, no reason. This wasn't a robbery. Not a single item from the garage sale was touched. The killer didn't steal her phone, her wallet, or the cash box sitting on the table. They didn't even check if she was alive. They came for one thing, Liz. And in 20 seconds, they took everything. But here's what haunts detectives to this day. The truck. A dark Nissan Frontier, captured on a neighbor's blurry Ring camera. Over 30,000 of these trucks were sold in Texas alone. For months, investigators tracked down owners, inspected vehicles, and grilled drivers. But every lead fizzled. No DNA on Liz's body. No fingerprints on the bullet casings. No murder weapon buried in a ditch. Just a ghost in a hoodie, walking away like they'd done this before. Liz's husband, Sergio, was at work when it happened. 20 miles away, clocked in, surrounded by co-workers. By the time he got the call, Liz was already gone. He still keeps her voicemails saved on his phone. Just hearing her voice, he says, "It's all I have left." The killer, though? They're out there. Maybe in Texas. Maybe in another state. Maybe watching this video right now, smirking at the theories, the rumors, the dead ends. They could be your neighbor, your coworker, the person who served you coffee this morning. And unless someone speaks up, they'll keep hiding. But here's the truth. Liz's story isn't over. Every tip, every shared post, every person who remembers her face keeps the hunt alive. Someone knows something. A detail. A confession. A truck that used to park down the street. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone you love. Until then, Liz's memory lives on. In the Star Wars marathons her friends host every year, in the letters Sergio leaves at her grave, and in the unanswered question that hangs over Tomball like a storm cloud. Who pulled the trigger? Justice doesn't have an expiration date, and neither does the truth. It starts with a phone call. A 911 operator's voice, calm but urgent. Shots fired. Woman down. By the time detectives arrive, the street is swarming with patrol cars, their red and blue lights slicing through the morning fog. Liz Barraza lies on the driveway, her blood staining the concrete. No weapon, no witnesses, just 4 shell casings glinting in the frost. This is where the hunt begins. You're a detective. Your job is to turn chaos into clues. You start with the basics. Who is Liz Barraza? You interview her husband, Sergio, still shaking in his work uniform. He tells you about their plans for the garage sale, how she'd been excited to declutter before their anniversary trip. He shows you texts from that morning. Don't forget the price tags, sent at 6:15 a.m. His alibi checks out, time cards, co-workers, security footage. He was 20 miles away when it happened, so you dig deeper. You knock on every door in the neighborhood. An elderly couple down the street heard what they thought were fireworks. A night shift worker saw a dark truck idling near the stop sign. A mom walking her dog noticed a figure in a hoodie, just standing there like they were waiting for something. But no one saw a face. No one heard a scream. You comb through Liz's life. Her phone, filled with selfies from Star Wars conventions and reminders to water her succulents. Her laptop, Pinterest boards packed with DIY projects, how to build a Baby Yoda costume, and library fundraiser ideas. Her emails, birthday plans for Sergio, RSVPs for a friend's baby shower, a reminder to call her mom. No cryptic messages, no threats, just a woman who loved her life. Her co-workers at the library describe her as the heart of the place. Parents talk about how she'd dress as Rey from Star Wars to read to kids. Her friends from the 501st Legion, a charity group that volunteers in stormtrooper costumes, say she was the first to show up and the last to leave. Even her exes have nothing but kind words. She was sunshine, one says. You'd have to be a monster to hurt her. But monsters leave traces. And this one didn't. The truck is your only lead. That dark Nissan Frontier with silver rims, caught on a neighbor's Ring camera. You learn there are 32,000 of these trucks registered in Texas. You spend weeks, then months, tracking them down. You run plates. You knock on doors. You find a college student in Houston who sold his Frontier 3 years ago. A mechanic in Dallas who repairs them. A single mom in San Antonio who uses hers to haul groceries. Every alibi checks out. Every truck comes back clean. No DNA on Liz's body. No fingerprints on the bullets. No security cameras along the killer's escape route. Just a ghost in a hoodie, dissolving into the morning. Sergio begs for answers on TV. His voice cracks as he stares into the camera. Please, if you know something, say something. We just want peace. Tips flood in. A man in Oklahoma bragging about a score in Texas, a rumor about a jealous coworker, a Reddit thread claiming it was a hired hit. You chase them all. You find nothing. The 501st Legion is ruled out. These were Liz's friends, her family. They'd never hurt her. The jealous coworker? She was at a dentist appointment. The Oklahoma lead? A meth addict looking for attention. The hitman theory? No money trail. No motive. Just noise. 5 years pass. The case file grows thicker. Photos of Liz's smiling face paper the walls of the detective's office. Her in a Princess Leia costume, her hugging Sergio at Disney World, her holding up a sold sign at a past garage sale. Every time a new detective takes over, they promise the family, we'll find them. But leads dry up. Witnesses move away. The Nissan Frontier? Probably crushed into scrap metal by now. The hardest part isn't the dead ends. It's the questions with no answers. Was the killer a man? A woman? Did they know Liz? Was this personal, or was she just practice? Did they park down the street and watch Sergio leave? Did they follow her for days? Weeks? Did they enjoy it? You think about the garage sale. Liz's Star Wars mug, shattered by the first bullet. Her favorite scarf fluttering on a table. The everything must go sign now bagged as evidence. You wonder if the killer took a souvenir. If they kept a bullet casing. If they ever feel guilty. You sit across from Sergio years later, notebooks stacked between you. He's quieter now. The grief hasn't faded, it's hardened like a scar. I still wait for her to walk through the door, he says. I still dream about that truck. Outside, the world moves on. New crimes, new headlines, new tragedies. But in Tombole, Liz's case is frozen. A puzzle with half the pieces missing. A story without an ending. The truth is out there. In a confession whispered to a cellmate. In a drunk slurred boast at a bar. In a dusty garage where a Nissan Frontier sits under a tarp, its secrets rusting away. Until then, the file stays open. The detectives keep looking. And Liz's family keeps waiting for a knock on the door, a phone call, a name. Someone knows. Maybe it's you. Let's step into the darkness for a moment. It's 6:15 a.m. You're sitting in a dark Nissan Frontier, engine idling, 3 houses down from Liz Barraza's home. You watch Sergio leave for work, his taillights fading into the fog. You wait. 10 minutes. 15. At 6:34 a.m., you pull into the driveway. Hoodie up, gloves on, gun tucked in your waistband. Liz is kneeling by a box of Star Wars books, her back to you. She doesn't turn around until you're 6 feet away. Maybe she smiles. Maybe she says, "Can I help you?" You don't answer. You raise the gun. 4 shots. Then you walk away, slow and steady, like you're leaving a grocery store. Why? Was Liz the target? Let's start there. She had no life insurance, no secret inheritance, no side hustle. Just a 29-year-old librarian who loved Star Wars, her husband, and her cat, Artemis. Her parents weren't wealthy. Her social media was a feed of cosplay photos and library events. So why her? Was it jealousy? A grudge so buried even her closest friends never saw it? Or did someone mistake her for someone else? Then there's Sergio, a devoted husband with no criminal record, no affairs, no debts. He worked overtime to save for their dream trip to Disney World. But what if someone wanted to punish him? Hurt him by taking the person he loved most? Detectives comb through his life too. Old co-workers, ex-girlfriends, even his high school yearbooks. Nothing. No threats. No enemies. Just a man who loved his wife. Now the convention story. Months before her murder, Liz posted online about a creepy guy who stalked her booth at a Star Wars event. He lingered for hours, asked where she lived, and joked about knowing how to disappear. She laughed it off, but friends say it rattled her. Was it him? A fan obsessed with her Princess Leia costume? A stranger who followed her home? Or just a lonely man making small talk, unaware he'd become a ghost in her story? The internet has its own ideas. True crime forums light up with theories. Was it a hired hit? A professional who left no trace? But hired by who? Liz's family had no money, no custody battles, no ties to gangs or drugs. Just a middle-class couple in a quiet Texas suburb. Was it a random thrill kill? Someone who picked her at random, like a hunter sighting a deer? But the killer waited 19 minutes after Sergio left. They knew when to strike. They wore gloves. They drove a common truck. This wasn't random. This was planned. Liz's father, Bob, sits at his kitchen table 5 years later, a cold cup of coffee in his hands. They wanted her to suffer, he says, to die where she felt safest. He's right. The killer didn't shoot her in a dark alley. They did it on her driveway in the open, where neighbors could have seen. Was that the point? To send a message? To humiliate her? Or was it just practical? A quick in and out like clockwork? But here's the problem. Theories need proof. And proof is what this case lacks. The creepy guy from the convention? No name. No photo. Just a blur in Liz's memory. The hired hit angle? No money trails. No burner phones. No shady characters in Sergio's past. Even the truck, the one solid clue, is a dead end. A dark Nissan Frontier with silver rims. There are thousands in Texas. They checked parking lot cameras, repair shops, junkyards. Nothing. So let's try another angle. What if Liz knew her killer? What if it was someone she trusted? A neighbor? A coworker? A friend from the 501st Legion? The Star Wars charity group she volunteered with? Detectives grilled them all. Polygraphs. Alibis. Phone records. Every person in her life came up clean. Or what if it was a woman? Most killers are men, but not all. A woman could have worn that hoodie, could have pulled that trigger, could have hated Liz for reasons no one else saw. A secret jealousy, a hidden feud. But Liz's friends insist she had no drama. She was the kind of person who'd bake you cookies if you had a bad day, one says. Then there's the darkest theory. What if the killer is still out there, hunting? What if Liz was practice? A test run? Someone's first kill before moving on to bigger targets? It's happened before. Serial killers often start small. But there's no pattern here. No similar crimes in Texas. Just Liz. 5 years later, the theories keep multiplying. Online sleuths dissect the ring footage, zooming in on pixels, claiming to see tattoos on the killer's wrists or a logo on their shoes. Others claim Sergio hired a hitman, despite zero evidence. Conspiracy blogs whisper about the Illuminati, the mob, even aliens. Noise. All noise. But here's what's real. Liz's garage sale items are still in her parents' attic. Sergio still visits her grave every Sunday. The hole in the garage door is still there, covered with a poster of Darth Vader, Liz's favorite villain. She'd think it was funny, her mom says, but no one laughs. The truth is, we may never know why Liz died. Maybe the killer's reason was petty. Maybe it was personal. Maybe it made sense only to them. But in the end, does it matter? A woman is dead. A family is broken. And a killer is free. Unless someone talks. A wife who recognizes her husband's Nissan Frontier in the footage. A friend who remembers a confession after too many beers. A mechanic who worked on a truck with a bullet-shaped dent. Or maybe you, someone watching this right now, thinking, I know that truck. Secrets don't stay buried forever. Someone knows. And when they speak, Liz's story won't end with a question mark. It'll end with justice. Walk into the Barraza family home today, and you'll find a box in the attic. Inside are porcelain dolls, Star Wars comics, and a hand-painted garage sale today. Sign, all items Liz arranged that morning. Dust gathers on the box now. No one can bear to open it. Not her parents, who still set a plate for her at Thanksgiving. Not Sergio, who visits her grave every Sunday with a new letter and a Baby Yoda figurine. I'll keep writing until I run out of words, he says. But I'll never run out of missing her. Meanwhile, strangers dissect Liz's case online. They zoom in on the pixelated Nissan Frontier, debate truck models on Reddit threads, and spin wild theories about masked assassins and secret identities. But to Liz's family, the noise isn't help. It's salt in a wound that never closes. Every tip that goes nowhere, every breakthrough that crumbles is a reminder the person who did this is still out there. Living, breathing, maybe even watching. But this story isn't just about Liz. It's about all of us. How you can kiss your spouse goodbye, text your mom I love you, and have your entire existence reduced to a mystery in a single moment. How a killer can fire 4 bullets into a stranger's chest and dissolve into the everyday world. A co-worker, a neighbor, a face in the grocery store. How justice isn't just delayed. Sometimes it's denied. Liz's murder isn't an anomaly. It's a mirror. It shows us how fragile our lives are. How the systems we trust to protect us, cameras, DNA databases, detectives, can fail. And how, for families like the Barrazas, closure isn't a verdict or an arrest. It's a question mark etched into every holiday, every birthday, every sunrise that feels wrong without her laughter. 5 years later, the hardest truth isn't that Liz died. It's that her killer gets to keep living. To wake up, make coffee, and forget, while her family stares at a box in an attic, waiting for a justice that may never come. Let's go back to the beginning, to a quiet street in Tomball, Texas, where oak trees line the sidewalks and American flags flutter on front porches. The driveway where Liz Barraza once arranged Star Wars toys and vintage teacups is empty now. The bloodstains are gone, power washed away by rain and time. The garage sale signs? Tossed in a dumpster years ago. The dark Nissan Frontier that carried the killer away? It's probably scrap metal by now. Crushed, melted, reborn as part of a minivan or a lamppost. Maybe the killer sold it for cash. Maybe they drove it into a lake. Or maybe they still use it to commute to work, passing cops on the highway who'll never know its dark history. But here's what we know. The person who pulled the trigger is alive. Right now, as you watch this, they're out there. Maybe eating breakfast at a diner. Maybe scrolling through true crime videos like this one, smirking at theories they know are wrong. Maybe they're even in Texas, mowing their lawn, coaching Little League, or volunteering at a church. They're a shadow in plain sight, hiding behind the cruelest truth of all. No one is looking for them anymore. Liz's case isn't cold because the evidence vanished. It's cold because the world moved on. Detectives retired. Reporters chased new tragedies. The Ring camera footage, that grainy, silent witness, feels like a relic from another era, like a VHS tape in a streaming world. But not everyone moved on. Sergio still writes letters to Liz. He folds them into envelopes sealed with Star Wars stickers and leaves them at her grave. Her parents still jump every time the phone rings, praying it's a detective saying, "We got them." And the killer? They're just living, breathing, walking through life like they didn't steal someone else's. So let me ask you, have you ever seen a dark Nissan Frontier with silver rims? Not today, years ago. Maybe parked on your street at dawn, engine running. Maybe sold in a hurry by a neighbor who suddenly moved away. Maybe a coworker who stopped showing up to work in January 2019, right after Liz's murder. A cousin who flinches when someone says her name. A friend who joked about getting away with murder over beers. A stranger at a gas station with a hoodie pulled too low. If any of this clicks, if your stomach just dropped, you're holding a piece of this puzzle. A piece the Barraza family has been screaming for since the day their world ended. You don't need to be sure. You don't need proof. Just pick up the phone. Call the tip line. Tell them what you know, what you heard, what you feel. Do it for Liz. Do it for Sergio, who still sleeps on her side of the bed. Do it because every person deserves more than a bullet hole in a garage door and a grave that says, "Gone too soon." Liz Barraza believed in heroes. She dressed as them at Comic Cons, Princess Leia, Rey, Ahsoka Tano. She donated to charities that helped kids in hospitals and shelters. She filled her life with stories where good always defeats evil, where the underdog saves the day. Let's prove her right. Let's be the heroes she believed in. Someone knows. A wife. A brother. A childhood friend. A cellmate. You. This isn't just a true crime story. It's a test. A test of whether a killer can really vanish in a world of cameras and data. A test of whether justice can still win when the trail is ice cold. So here's how Liz's story ends. It doesn't. Not yet. Every time you share her name, every time you remember her face, every time you refuse to look away, you keep the hunt alive. You turn a cold case into a ticking clock. Liz Barraza's killer remains a shadow. But shadows can't exist without light. And her story, it's a torch. Until the truth is found, her memory endures. And so does the fight for answers. Liz Barraza's killer remains a shadow, but her story echoes. A reminder that justice delayed is not justice denied. Until the truth is found, her memory endures, and so does the hunt for answers.